Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Ukraine War News Update, second part thereof for the 28th of April 2025. We're going to do a military aid video today, first one for many days. We're going to start with the cost that is estimated for Ukraine to be rebuilt. The Times is reporting that rebuilding Ukraine will be expensive. Well, obviously we know that, with current estimates around £400 billion. It is possible that as part of the deal, £225 billion of Russian assets frozen overseas could be seized for this purpose. A European diplomat said that Moscow will spit and scream for show, but in reality it will accept this as a way of paying reparations from money it will never get back. I guess the Russians will probably have to be quite pragmatic about that money that has been frozen. Ukraine has already secured $50 billion in income from frozen Russian assets, according to Denis Shmyhal, the Prime Minister. Funds are used for budget, military needs and rapid recovery. Full confiscation remains the goal, plus a proposed tariff on Russian imports to fund Ukraine's rebuild. And then in 2025, we hear that Ukraine expects more than $39 billion in budget support. This resource has been confirmed by partners, again, Denis Shmyhal. So that's going to be, partly from income from frozen Russian assets, partly from, IMF, World Bank, different entities, the EU Reconstruction Bank, all sorts of things going on, all sorts of entities helping Ukraine. Indeed, the World Bank will provide Ukraine with $70 million to support the stability of the Ukrainian energy system. That's probably with the pulling out of USAID funding from the US. Funds will be used to purchase energy storage systems from Ukhrhydroenergo, so the hydroelectric power supplier. Now, although this happened sort of 3-4 days ago now, we had the Norwegian president or was it prime minister in the White House speaking with Trump. And I'm just bringing this up again because I meant to the other day and just I talked about this, but not discussing the idea that this is in stark contrast to Trump and the United States. So that Trump is sitting there listening to the Norwegian leader who says, Norway says that they have tripled their military support to Ukraine and will allocate $8 billion to strengthen Ukraine. Well, what's the population of Norway again? So Norway, if you just do it per capita, 5.51 million. So that is pretty incredible. Population in the US is 342 million. So if we do 342 divided by 5.5, we get an answer of 62 times. So the US provision to Ukraine, if they were to equal the military support from Norway, and I think, is that not just this year? That it would have to be so we're looking at 8 billion there times 62. So 8 times 62 is 496 billion. So the Norwegians potentially, if that is just a 2025 number, are giving the equivalent of $492 billion, $496 billion, right? In terms of what the US would be giving if they were to like for like from Norway there, just in population. If you're talking about GDP, then it'd be even more, right? And the point of him saying this, I mean, although he probably doesn't point it out, but it would be nice if this was pointed out to Trump, that, Norway is gifting $8 billion of military assistance to Ukraine. That would be worth $500 billion if we were the United States. He said, we commend the US for pushing forward for trying to find a negotiated solution. But at the same time, we have to continue to support Ukraine. Again, this kind of rhetoric is actually in stark contrast to Trump. So I think it's really useful for other allied nations to say in the White House this kind of thing. We have a responsibility to secure democratic Ukraine for the future, and the best security guarantee they can have is the ability to defend themselves, and we are investing in that. So really significant rhetoric there from Norway. Now, the Czech Initiative, It's thanks to that initiative, 400,000 artillery shells have already been delivered to Ukraine this year. So that's still chugging along very nicely. Thank you very much. And of course, Ukraine have ramped up their production. Europe's ramped up their production, including the UK. The US obviously has, but they are just going to give what's already been ordered. I don't think you're going to see any new orders unless something significantly changes there, which is a massive shame, not only for Ukraine, but also for the production facilities in the US. Now, small Baltic country of Estonia will establish a major military explosives factory outside Pärnu. The operation is slated to produce more than 600 tons of RDX explosive yearly, supplying Estonian and European ammunition, especially artillery manufacturers. And of course, this is part of the bottleneck for production of artillery ammunition. 600 tons of RDX will fill roughly 100,000 155mm shells, or roughly 1 million 81mm mortar rounds. The Estonian Prime Minister said this will contribute to narrowing the gap in European ammunition production. Good stuff there. Jeff 2146 states that Army technology, citing its own sources, claim that Ukraine has reached a monthly production capacity of 36 two S-22 Bohdana 155mm artillery systems. These are Ukrainian-produced self-propelled howitzers that appear to be, decent enough bits of kit and come in at least half the price of the French equivalent Caesar. And not only are they cheaper, but they are producing them at a rate of knots. 36 of these a month is more than one a day, and that's possibly around the replacement number for self-propelled howitzers. I mean, that would be absolutely fantastic if that's the case. And we understand they're producing the towed version of this as well. So on top of that, they will be producing towed howitzers. And they are looking to get it beyond 36 too. This is really, really good news from Ukraine. This is a 100% increase from the previously stated 18 to 20, which was reported back in September last year. So just in those 6 months, Ukraine has managed to ramp up production significantly. Sharp increases expected production numbers immediately raises the current monthly average for the year to 22.5. But of course, now going forward, it's going to be 36 plus. And it also means that 400 and something again, let's do a bit of maths. So we've got 36 times 12. So just at the current rate, but of course it's going to go up. We have 432 over the course of a year. That's exceptional. Now we're going to come to Russia a bit later, just trying to work out what the Russian production capacity of howitzers is, because I was under the impression they weren't actually producing any, but there is some evidence that a new self-propelled howitzer has been seen on a train. We'll come to that later. But let's go to France. So from Ukraine, and then comparing those numbers to the production. Actually, so CJ says, who's part of the Tochny team, that the 432 Bohdanas a year is insane. It would make the Bohdana one of the most mass-produced large caliber artillery systems in the world. That's how far Ukrainian production has gone. Absolutely staggering that. Now, Germany will continue to provide military assistance to Ukraine, even if the US stops providing it, according to German Defense Minister Pistorius. The provision is spelled out in a coalition agreement on the basis of which the government is currently being formed in Germany. And we're hearing that the foreign minister is a pro-Ukrainian there, so that's really good news. The new government coalition being formed. But Boris Pistorius very clearly saying that, we will continue to support Ukraine even in the event of the US pulling back much more significantly. Going to France's production of, everything. But we're going to start with Caesars, the kind of equivalent of the Bohdana there. France is boosting arms production to supply Ukraine with KNDS, the manufacturer, increasing output of Caesar howitzers and other weapons critical to Ukraine's defense against Russia. And I think is it 80% of Caesars are going to Ukraine that are being produced at the moment. So there's still a backlog of these going to Ukraine. So if you're counting up where they're getting self-propelled howitzers from, assuming they'll still get some from elsewhere, it's not just going to be Caesars and Bohdanas. But again, the importance of Ukraine building up their own defense industry is they don't have to rely on the manufacturing from elsewhere. But like I said before, actually, for a nation like France, they'd probably be more inclined to build their own and give them to Ukraine than give the money to Ukraine to build their own, even if it's more efficient. I know Denmark have said it's more efficient for us to give money to Ukraine because they can spend it more wisely, as in it's cheaper to build these things in Ukraine than it is to build them in France. But France would want that economic stimulus as a kind of return on investment from their money spent. So anyway, up to 80 Caesar howitzers, no, not 80%, sorry, I'm going to correct myself. Up to 80 Caesar howitzers will be produced in 2025. Most of them will be sent to Ukraine. So I don't know the percentage, but the number 80 was how many in total are being produced next year. But again, you compare 80 to 432. Now, the Caesars are undoubtedly technologically more superior. Obviously, they cost more to build, but that's partly because they are going to be better bits of kit than the Bohdana. But like I said to you before, yep, they may be better, but are you getting twice the value from one of these than a single Bohdana? In other words, would you rather have two Bohdanas or one Caesar? How much extra value do you get from the Caesar being a better bit of kit technologically, etc., etc.? I don't know the answer to that, but I would have thought the Ukrainians would be like, we'll have two Bohdanas rather than one Caesar, is my guess. Right, Ukraine front line states, and I have not seen this anywhere else, but France has lifted all restrictions on the use of Scalp missiles. I wasn't aware they particularly had any. I thought that they had given permission to Ukraine to use them as they saw fit. But yeah, I guess good news that that's happened. Now, talking about France and just general military news, but this kind of move away from well, actually, I was going to say move away from US stuff. No, actually, this is a move away from Russian military equipment. India, which has been it's a interesting nation because it's part of BRICS with Russia, but has also long been demanding or buying Russian military equipment, but they've been spending the last decade plus ramping up their own military production capabilities and capacities so that they don't have to go and rely on another nation like Russia to produce X, Y, and Z. But then also buying, as you can see, Rafales from France. So India and France have concluded single largest arms export contract in French history. Total value of $7.5 billion. The sale pertains to 26 Rafale M naval fighter aircraft, munitions, spare parts and upgrades to 36 existing Indian Air Force Rafales. Deliveries of the Rafale M are planned to start from 2029. They will complement India's fleet of MiG-29K for the foreseeable future as India continues to look for the MiG's replacement. Of course, the MiG-29 is pretty aged bit of kit. The Ukrainians still using them to deliver ordnance to the Russians, but really they'd rather use much more updated airframes. Now, Pope Francis, as we know, has passed away, but we are hearing that he may well have funded some drones for Ukraine from his own pocket. Now, this has just kind of come out after his death. It was kept quiet until then. And he had this checkered relationship with the war in Ukraine, or at least in public, he had come out and said kind of, almost appeasement sounding things with regard to, trying to treat both sides, neutrally or whatnot. But in secret, and he got a lot of criticism for that, but in secret, he might have actually recognized the real moral value of supporting Ukraine. So in December 2023, as Ukrainian soldiers from the 93rd Cold Yar Brigade struggled to find reconnaissance drones for their operations against Russian forces, a mysterious donation appeared. Ukrainian historian Alexander Zinchenko, who was coordinating the fundraiser, received a call from a trusted intermediary with an unexpected offer. A secret Santa wanted to ensure the soldiers would have their drones. Quote, maybe we can buy a third backup drone, the intermediary suggested after learning the fundraiser was nearly complete. The third drone was eventually nicknamed Santa to maintain the donor's anonymity. Only after Pope Francis's death did Zinchenko reveal the shocking truth. The secret Santa was none other than Pope Francis himself. The donation came from the Pontiff's personal funds, not the Vatican coffers, and was made with a strict requirement of confidentiality, reports the Euromaidan press. The clandestine support for Ukraine's defence forces stands in stark contrast to the same Pope who, just months later, in March 2024, would controversially suggest Ukraine should have the courage to raise a white flag and negotiate with Russia, a statement that provoked outrage across Ukraine and beyond. These two acts, secretly funding military equipment while publicly calling for negotiations that many Ukrainians viewed as surrender, encapsulate the profound contradictions that define Pope Francis's approach to Russia's war against Ukraine. So yeah, wow, that's if that's true, and no particular reason to believe it isn't, then that is a pretty staggering revelation. Now, some photos have come out of a big airplane here, an Antonov, I think, I don't know which one it is, 124, Antonov 124, I think, and this is in the United States, an airframe being loaded onto it and having its flight path going to none other than Ukraine. What's going on there? Wow. So are the Americans actually providing F-16s? Because we've heard that there are criticisms against the US that they have all these F-16s, but actually they're not providing any to Ukraine at all. They are training pilots. So people saying, this is a gift wrap F-16, and others saying, yep, best guess is it is the shape of an F-16. It does look like an F-16. Now, bear in mind, these are just comments by random people on a thread here, most likely for spare parts or some other use. These were seen at Tucson, so that's Arizona, where they train, but are A or B models, says this person. Hard to believe they will be used operationally. And then someone saying as well that, in the US, the F-16s aren't only US F-16s. So the pilot training is there. So Dutch, Danish and Belgian F-16s are stationed there too. So it could be an F-16 from one of those nations. It could be one of the Belgian spare parts F-16s. I doubt it will be an American one. We certainly haven't heard about American ones being given to Ukraine. Washington has privately offered security guarantees to the coalition of the willing that London is calling for regarding Ukraine, according to Daily Telegraph, as I reported the other day. Americans have opened the door to providing intelligence and logistical support to British and European soldiers on land, in the air and at sea. The matter has not been decided regarding Washington's readiness to intervene if Western soldiers are attacked by Russia. So there could be a form of backstop from or at least support from the Americans, logistical and intelligence support, which is certainly something. But we also hear that the UK may abandon plans to deploy large troop forces to Ukraine, according to The Times. This was a few days back. Instead of replacing troops near the front lines, the UK and France now reportedly aim to send military trainers to Western Ukraine, fulfilling a commitment to deploy personnel without engaging in direct defence roles. Now, instead of placing troops near the front lines, UK and France reportedly aim to send military trainers to Western Ukraine, fulfilling a commitment to deploy personnel without engaging in direct defence roles. And indeed, John Healey, the UK Defence Secretary, has stated in a letter that's been seen by the Telegraph that British troops sent to Ukraine won't go near the front lines, and their mission will be to train Ukrainian forces, not to fight. So this won't be a security guarantee I think that Ukraine would be happy enough with. Quote, our focus is on rebuilding a modern, capable Ukrainian army. What this might then do is allow trainers from the Ukrainian side of things to move forward. They can take over, the French and British can take over in the west of Ukraine, for example, at training facilities, assuming the Russians won't target those. Then Ukrainian troops can be released to go and help serve on the front lines. So that is that. When we're moving on to Russia now, the missile that killed 12 Ukrainians in Kyiv the other day contained at least 116 components, most of them sadly made in the US, according to Zelensky. I think it might be up to 13 now that were killed. But anyway, 116 components, most of them made in the US. So that's a real challenge that still exists for the Ukrainians. Here we have the Telegram blogger Russian FPV revealing more barriers to developing a Russian heavy drone, the Baba Yaga fleet like Ukraine's. Dear and respected commentators who write and present us with charges for using Chinese components every day, this post is for you. Let's start with the fact that yes, we, like many other drone manufacturers, use cameras, flight controllers and GPS systems produced by craftsmen from the Middle Kingdom, and we do it consciously. The thing is that some components for agricultural drones are simply impossible to get in Russia, and those that can be obtained cost about the same as a Boeing wing or a not very long cast iron bridge. As a result, this will increase the cost of the final product many times over, which will lead to the fact that our drones will be available exclusively to large government customers, and their birds' presence at the front will be limited to dozens, if not single units. The enemy has managed to saturate its troops with agricultural drones, so the big hexacopters and octocopters over the years, so much that they have become a constant headache for our soldiers. Ukrainians are not at all worried about the loss of this or that Baba Yaga. It is immediately replaced with a new one. Not a single manufacturer of agricultural drones has yet achieved such a flow for the following number of reasons. One, each drone must undergo a test flight. In the case of production, that is just beginning to emerge. This factor is critically important. It takes time. Two, spare parts had to be ordered from China, and this also takes time. Ordering the same in Russia is impossible due to astronomical prices. Three, the need to constantly maneuver between reliability and flight characteristics and affordable cost of the final product. And four, lack of specialized education for operators. Agricultural drones are complex, not only in mechanical control, they are more difficult to flash and configure. We have only a few operators who really know how to work in Ardu Pilot, and it is very easy to damage an expensive product due to inexperience. We believe that first of all, we need to solve these problems and not run around and accuse everyone of using Chinese spare parts. Our products are designed by Russian engineers on Russian soil, assembled by Russian craftsmen. This is what makes us Russian weapons. Okay, so there's an analysis of the difficulty there, finding in matching the Ukrainians in this kind of domain, and there is an asymmetry there that the Ukrainians need to continue to hammer at. Now, this is what I was talking about. This is a train full of, well, not full of. We have what's it? I mean, we don't know how far it goes behind, but there's at least two, four, five, at least five of these, and they are apparently two S-43 Malvers. So two S-43 Malva is a Russian 152mm self-propelled gun mounted on an 8x8 wheel chassis, developed between 2019 and 2023. So actually, it's really recent. Finished its development after the war started. Deployment in Ukraine on June 2nd, 2024. An aerial image of one of these surfaced showing the vehicle's deployment to a firing position in Kharkiv region in Ukraine as part of the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine. While the image is confirmed to be a 2S-43, there is very little information available regarding how many are on the front or their uses. The gun is in service with the artillery division of the 238th Separate Artillery Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces. So yeah, it has, let's have a look what the operational range is. That's 1,000 kilometers. That's driving, I would have thought. What's the actual range of the, I don't know, effective firing range? 24.5 kilometers. So fairly limited range. It's 70 kilometers if they use a particular type of range. That might be a sort of base bleed. But the question is, how many of those top rounds do they have that are no doubt very expensive? Yeah. Again, that's not the range you see of other Western equivalents. Your Archers, your Caesars, and your Panzer Howitzer 2000s, and even possibly your Bohdana. But I wonder what the Bohdana 2S22 range is. Again, it's going to depend on what you're firing. 2S22. The operational range, the firing range. Let's have a look. 42 to 60 kilometers. So 42 kilometers, and here's your newest Russian one. Yeah, only a couple of years old, and its range is 24.5 kilometers. just, yeah, I think that's a really interesting difference there. And then just worth pointing this out. So the Yalabuga drone manufacturing facility that was targeted the other day, the final assembly line was apparently hit. 5 out of 6 of the drones managed to get through, say the Ukrainians. This is one of these facilities that absolutely needs to be hammered by the Ukrainians. But it's long been known that the Russians were employing people from abroad to work there. So not only was it, and I presume it still is, associated with the local kind of sixth form college, like 17-year-olds were sort of a legalized sweatshop, if you like, were doing their kind of work experience, like learning design by building these drones. But then they were, I mean, early doors, there were reports. I remember reading a thread to you maybe 2 years plus ago, talking about how they had particularly African women working there, and they were sort of, I don't know, manipulating them to get there, you know, trying all of these techniques to get these people to come and work in Yalabuga. Well, actually, here's another insane recruitment video Russia's using to try to lure women to Russia to slave in factories assembling kamikaze drones, says Jane Kiev from the Yalabuga Start Program Telegram channel. So they have a whole Telegram channel that is all about attracting these workers over.
That is a preferential cost.
To Russia. In fact, that sounds like that's in English, this video.
I wanted to talk about our program. What is it all about? You might wonder. So the START program, it's an international program aimed at employing young females from 18 to 22. And that program offers great work opportunities for the females out there.
So on and so forth. So that's what they're doing. They're still working hard to attract that workforce. But yeah, I thought I'd throw that one in there. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully that was of use to you. It's informative. Please remember there's a Car for Ukraine campaign that we're still involved in, the Easter Pisanki campaign, that we're succeeding in getting ever closer to a pretty huge goal across a number of different YouTube channels. We at ATP Geopolitics are in the 4th position there. We have crept up the leaderboard. Really proud of you guys. If you can help, please follow the link below, atpgeopolitics.com/donate. And that will take you to this page. Make sure you go through to the ATP Geopolitics page and help us out here. It really is a great charity, Car for Ukraine. They do such an amazing job. Thank you to Brian Vaughan, who donated yesterday, and all those who have donated to the campaign. Really, really appreciate it. Paul Spiker, incredible. Corey Clark there. Lots of people. Michael Winkler, and whoever donated a huge amount back here, where we have, 2,300 euros, I think it was. So it'd be great if you could help out. In the meantime, thank you very much. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.